Another aspect of my class, one thing that we really spend a lot of time studying is Renaissance, of course, and not just about the artists, but it's very important for us to understand how these artists were funded. At that particular time during the Renaissance, you didn't just make art and put it in a shop window and sell it. You usually didn't make art until you were commissioned for it. And the Medici family were a wealthy Italian banking family from Florence, but they were more than that. That kind of candy coats what they were. They actually, in fact, one of the videos that we watch in the class is called "The Medici Godfathers of the Renaissance," and they were just that. They were really tough people. The way that they attained power, in particular gaining the papal accounts, was they sponsored a former pirate to become clergy in the church, and eventually he attained the position of Pope. And to return the favor to the people that financed that, the Medici family, he gave them the papal accounts, which gave them unbelievable wealth and control over much of Italy and eventually much of Europe. In particular, one particular artist that we do discuss is Michelangelo, of course. Michelangelo painted the Sistine Chapel at of course it was Pope Julius II that commissioned him to paint it, and he was very reluctant to paint it. Michelangelo came from the Medici family. They kind of took him in whenever he was a youngster and recognized talent in him immediately, especially as a sculptor. Michelangelo, whenever he is the mature part of his career, he was even known for not eating, not changing his clothes. They said that sometimes he would actually wear his shoes for months at a time, and when he would remove his shoes, sometimes the skin would come with him. So he was definitely what you would consider a workaholic. But coming from the Medici and being trained by the Medici, eventually he began to turn his back, not really happy with the way that they maintained power. One particular thing was called I forget the exact term, but it was the translation is loss of face, and it was just that. Anybody that went against the Medici, when the Medici finally got a hold of them, they would actually put a scar, as they put it, from ear to ear, and that was considered loss of face, and you were a marked person at that point, and they knew that you had gone against the powerful Medici family. These types of practices are really what turned Michelangelo somewhat against them, and he kind of became a loner at that point. When we talk about the Sistine Chapel, everybody associates Michelangelo with that and sees that as his crowning achievement, which it was. But many are surprised to find out that he did not want to paint the Sistine Chapel at all. He reckoned himself as a sculptor and not a painter. And so the Pope, Pope Julius, and he had a real love-hate relationship. Michelangelo knew that he could get away with fussing at the Pope or calling the Pope out because he was a world-famous artist, and it would have been very bad public relations for the Pope to hang him or put him in prison. So they had this real squabbling match all throughout the 4 years that Michelangelo was completing the Sistine Chapel. It's more than 5,800 square feet of fresco, which is just an unbelievable amount of space to have to fill, particularly with the fresco method. And of course, fresco is painting on damp plaster, so the plaster needs to be applied first, and of course it's only done in sections. So a small section of plaster would be applied, Michelangelo would apply the paint and the figure, and on and on and on, and that's why it took such a long time. He stopped on the project several times. A couple of times he actually ran away from the Pope, and of course the Pope would have him arrested and bring him back and put him back to work. The final incident that happened is Michelangelo just about was to collapse from exhaustion, mentally, physically, and he was actually losing his eyesight. He could not see when he looked down because his eyes had been looking up at the ceiling for so long. His eyes had weakened as far as his his vision looking down. So the Pope came to see him as he was exhausted and basically told him, "I'm going to let Raphael finish your ceiling." And of course, this threw him into a rage that nobody, that was a real slap in the face for somebody that was considered maybe a little bit of a lesser painter and a much younger painter to complete such a feat. So Michelangelo did muster the strength to get back to work and finish the job. One of the interesting aspects that we talk about in the classroom in particular is after the job was over, the Pope had him complete the altar as well in a fresco that represented the Last Judgment. You have Christ in the middle with those, some ascending into heaven, others going into hell, and he actually painted one of the people going into hell in the likeness of the Pope, which is kind of gives you a real glimpse into what their relationship was like. And these are just some of the other little things that we try to throw in particular when we're talking about art history, to bring these artists down to a human level, and to try to make people understand how that worked and how artists were commissioned to do work at that time.